I remember driving around town one day. I was going to, this was years ago when we still had a video store in my town, and I was going to, loan some movies. And for some strange reason, the thought kind of crossed my mind like, if somebody wanted to get into the console hardware business, how difficult would it be? Sega exited the business. Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox were the ones that pretty much, they held it together. And I thought to myself, man, anybody who would try to do something like that would absolutely, need to make all of this money and they'll have to lose some money. I was just kind of thinking about different scenarios, but little did I know that at some point PC was going to not only become a force to be reckoned with, but it was going to be the entry point for new consoles to be added to the market. Now, no one would probably, easily go call a PC handheld a console, but it actually is a console. In fact, Asus tactfully snuck their way into the market and claimed exactly what Steam Deck was actually tiptoeing around. Because for some strange reason, Valve was a little skittish in calling their Steam Deck a console, even though it is a console. They kind of still, I don't know. They wanted to basically make it sound like, well, you're enjoying a powerful portable PC gaming, designed for comfort and a console-like user experience, right? So they were still seemingly somewhat skittish in their description, but Asus was not in any way deterred by some definition. They simply called their device, the Rogue Ally and Rogue Ally X, a handheld console PC. They literally went out for that definition and they basically claimed that whole thing to themselves, thereby putting a new definition to not only their handheld, but every other handheld around them. So now the console space has opened up. Lenovo now has its own handheld console PC. MSI now has its own handheld console PC. And so the market that I kind of thought or presumed would be hard to break into is now pretty much these companies that have been in a specific set of hardware pieces, leveraging those hardware pieces to now enter this market. You do know that these things are laptops at the end of the day, right? The technology inside of them from a hardware perspective is laptop technology, but the form, the design form, and the focus, which basically now its design is no longer like the laptop. The laptop had the keyboard attached to it and a mouse pad attached to it and all of its ports, right? But in this case, they've now basically taken that form and made it gaming centric, and it's now basically a console running an operating system that still can give you a little bit of that, PC-like experience as well too, but you can now use it for gaming and enjoy it. That's why you notice with the Lenovo Legion carrying that detachable, system that goes with it and all of the above, while the Rogue carrying that, aesthetics with the buttons already, just front and center in front of the, the device. And then MSI coming also with, their little interesting aesthetics, dragon design that's very fantasy-like. This is the playful way that these companies are basically entering into this market and holding it down. Then, even after Valve said, no, we're not making a console, well, apparently there's now news that they have some hardware that got leaked. Now, what is the impact of these devices compared to Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo? The impact for this particular moment is not really as big. However, these players seem to have now found a route into another market segment, and it doesn't seem like they're going to easily stop. It seems like they're going to continue with what it is that they're already doing. In my own opinion, this right here is what makes the console market, as it has traditionally been, in play, a lot less, how do I put it? A lot less of a triangle of these three that have basically held it all down. That shape of a triangle, Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, has now broadened even to an H-shaped object where, sure, on some points you have Nintendo You have, PlayStation and Xbox probably on some far edges, and then the others are kind of just mixing, in some of the other points. Just think about an octagon, like an eight-sided, object. And the other, development teams, it's kind of a warped eight-sided object, right? And so these other companies are now in these different spaces, and now market share is going to look very different at the end of the day. Even PlayStation themselves coming to the market with a handheld, to me, indicates that they're seeing this particular encroachment, and they want to make sure that they go ahead and lock down their own piece of the ecosystem. I mean, Xbox is already basically hopping on the train with, Lenovo with the Rogue Ally and the Rogue Ally X, right? The Xbox Rogue Ally X. So them looking at this and saying, man, we're seeing this particular piece, and instead of sitting and waiting around to even develop their handheld, Xbox not having as much time, right? Let me see. I said the Rogue Ally, the Xbox Ally X. Xbox not having as much time, right, to basically sit around and go ahead and design or redesign new hardware, is now basically jumping into the space. And not only are they jumping into the space, they're actually creating the software and redesigning the entirety of Windows to actually work on these consoles. So new players are now in the console market. Really, like, it's crazy that a console market that seemed like it was almost impossible backdoored its way in. That's what PC's always been great for anyways. whenever there's something that's actually sitting out there, technology is so adept at actually tearing itself down. It will build up this thing, right? And then eventually rend it apart for something new to emerge. And so now we are in the emergence of a new console space. Some traditionalists may disagree with me, but whether or not they disagree, it doesn't matter, as these devices actually are here and actually do exist. Now, they will talk about sales and hardware sales and console sales, to which we tell them, shh, 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 shh. It doesn't matter, because it's the games that have been selling. That's exactly what matters. So if all you sell your consoles to do is to play 1 or 3 games, then shut up about the console sales more than anything else, as those games and the people who are actually buying these devices find themselves in a place where they can actually intersect. And that's exactly what it is. It's about the gamer. I'll get out of here. Talk to me in the comment section. I want to hear what you think about this. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.